Beezie and I are here to talk about the thesis for the third and fourth antinomies. And one thing that you will notice in these particular arguments is that the argument structure is going to be somewhat similar to the way in which the thesis for the first antinomy went, which is the argument that there must be a first beginning in time. So the third antinomy is talking about causality, but it's actually a contrast between, in some sense, determinism and freedom of the will. So the argument in this thesis is that there has to exist something like absolute freedom of the will. Because suppose there was not. So suppose that everything that happened occurred in accordance with the cause. So the reason why there was so much barking from this friend here, which resulted in several earlier takes of this video having to be deleted, is because there is some roofing going on across the street. So that seemed to be an event. The barking was an event that happened in accordance with a cause, which was some very, very dangerous hammering or something going on over there. But now let's think about what would happen using a proof by contradiction if we extended that universally in an unlimited way. Well, then we would have infinitely many causes, right? So the idea being that there would be no beginning. So we would have to have gone through this infinite series of causes already, and this is impossible for a lot of the same reasons as we ran into in the first antinomy. So there has to be something which occurs without a cause, and something like freedom is a way to account for that. So freedom meaning freedom of the will. Now, the fourth antinomy has to do with the idea of an absolutely necessary being. So here we're thinking about arguments for the existence of God. And the thesis argues not just that there exists an absolutely necessary being like God, but that this being exists in the world, okay, in some way in the world. Because the idea is that if this being exists outside the world, okay, so if this being is outside the world, then somehow suppose it was not, then all these alterations in the world, so all these different kinds of causal factors would derive from outside the world. And that's not possible. So if this necessary being, this being which is causing all of these alterations, is going to have any effect on the world, it must also be part of that same world, because that's how alteration works. Okay, so those are the theses for the third and fourth antinomies, and we're going to go through the antithesis for each antinomy in the next video.